whenever you're ready to start. So we are recording right now, and we do have an audience.
A lot of people.
Are y'all ready? Everybody in the room?
Sneaky.
All right, good evening. Welcome to the Ava Community Energy Community Advisory Committee meeting for December 16th, Monday, 6 p.m. We are here in Oakland in the Lake Merritt Room in Cal State East Bay, the Oakland Center. Is this the last time we'll be here?
No, March.
March, so we'll transition out of this venue in March. And welcome to those Zoomers. And hello, Alex. See you up there. We'll start off with our welcome and roll call.
Great, thank you. Member Landry.
Present.
Member Wenner. Present. Member Balkison.
Present.
Member Stevenson.
Present.
Member Swaminathan. Member Lakshman. Present. Member Pacheco. Present. Member Carr. Member Harper.
Present.
Member Lutz.
Here.
Vice Chair Souza.
Here.
Chair Hernandez.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move item to C2, public comment. This item is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any AVA community energy related matters that are not otherwise on this meeting agenda. Public comments on matters listed on the agenda shall be heard at the time the matter is called. As with all public comment, members of the public who wish to address the committee are customarily limited to 3 minutes per speaker and must complete their electronic speaker slip. The committee may increase or decrease the time allotted to each speaker. Do we have any public comment, Adrian?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Great, thank you. With that, we'll move to item C3, approval of minutes from November 18, 2024. Any comments, adjustments, changes?
Yeah,
Go ahead, member.
there was one of the motions on,
Bring the mic closer to yourself.
I'm trying to remember it because I don't have my notes up, but it was the motion on,
CSE work plan?
Not on the ad
CSE
hoc.
work plan? There's a legislative year in review,
no,
bill credit.
it's the bill credit. And in the minutes, I was put down as the one who made the motion, and I don't think I did.
Between you or Balkasoon, there was some conversation about, I think that you said it first and then
But then I ended up abstaining, so I think
okay.
I probably didn't actually do it. So,
Thank you.
no,
Bill credit.
on the minutes, on the bill credits.
There was some question, there was definitely some question about that.
Yeah,
So thank you
I
for
don't
that
think it
clarification.
was me,
Great, I'll go.
because I was sort of, I didn't know what I was going to.
We voted for
Option one,
option one.
but I abstained.
Oh, you did?
You did abstain in the vote, but I thought that you were the motion
I don't
bringer.
think I
There
did.
was some question about that, but I'm happy to accept
Put
that
it to her.
clarification. Thank you.
Are we amending the minutes?
Yes. Well, we'll vote on them as amended.
As amended, to who's the first, who's the second?
Yes.
So who was the first
Balkasoon,
and second?
was, Wenner.
Are any other comments or changes to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll take a motion as amended.
Great, thank you.
We'll wait for the motion. Anybody want to make a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
I make a motion.
Okay, and second? Balkasoon?
I'll second.
All right, great.
And who's the second?
Balkasoon? All right, we'll do that, roll call vote.
Thank you very much. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner. Come back to Member Weiner. Member Balkasoon,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Swaminathan, excuse me, Member Lakshman. Member Pacheco. Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez,
Yes.
Member Weiner. Minutes are approved.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move over to the chair report, item C4. I can give a chair report from the past Board of Directors meeting that occurred in November. There on consent, the board did approve to authorize the Resilient Hub technical assistance, the Solar App Plus contract, energy efficiency regulatory reporting services with Frontier Energy, and the extension of the SMUD contract, which I provided thoughts about bringing them more locally here. I believe there was other feedback around that, so we just focused on that contract and its extension, I believe for a couple more years, but really focusing more on those services locally back in the territory where possible. And there was another contract approval for SWAG. The CEO also reported that they highlighted that CAC work plan, and they were also focused on the goal to install 200 free induction cooktops for low-income housing that also monitor air quality impacts. They had 70 applications as of last month on that program to really change behavior and making sure better air quality in those households. The Fremont R100 opt-out for residential will occur in 2025 for residential and 2026 for commercial and industrial. And collectively, AVA has signed over 18 gigawatts of clean energy agreements, $37 billion in contracts and 36,000 union jobs across California. Yes. I did give the CAC report on our meet and greet on the efforts in the work plan on energy affordability, emerging technologies, and resilient hubs. And thereafter, the board did approve the Greenbridge PPA that supports critical municipal facilities like city buildings, other buildings that are in the community in Berkeley, Emeryville, Fremont, Hayward, Livermore, Oakland, Pleasanton, and San Leandro through phase 1 and 2. So really making sure those buildings are resilient by bringing more solar and I believe some storage, where AVA works as the conduit to make sure those buildings are stood up with those renewable energy services, with the third-party developer and builder, Greenbridge, helping with that solution. And then finally, I know that I wasn't here for the discussion, but we talked about the budget surplus waterfall. There I understood from Member Souza, Vice Chair, that the committee would want to see option 1, which is going to be the most for 100 for CareFair customers. Our credit of 125. Staff was recommending that night option 3, $75 for CareFair credit, because that was something for everyone. And I moved them to our least option 2, which is still $100 for CareFair credits, and where somebody still gets something better from last year. So the board voted to move towards option 2, and that's what occurred there that evening. Yes, Member Papusin.
Did they clarify why the preference for option 2 versus?
They have more of a preference of option 3 based on staff recommendation,
Right.
where somebody still got something for everything, and then we had one. So I looked at option 2, and there was discussion brought forth, and I even pushed it further to at least make sure that option 2 still provided something for everyone. Because it would have only been $75 credit for CareFair. We were at 125. We at least got them up from 75 to 100. So the motion that was on the table is 3, and moved them into option 2.
And the reason was because there was something for everyone.
Yes.
Whereas option 1 was really preferencing.
Yeah,
on
non-residential
CareFair.
is the same as 2023.
Okay.
So, and also residential was similar to 2023. And the CareFair did not receive a residential credit. But, that's where they changed it to option 3, where somebody got something. But then I moved into option 2, so a little bit more for CareFair, and still everybody got something. So that was mostly the chair report for that evening. And then any other clarifying questions or thoughts? Because we can take public comment if there's anything there. Yes, sir.
I didn't read, I don't know if this was in the board package, but did they have a breakdown of the union jobs, like what kind of jobs or to which project?
You can put it in the mic.
Sorry, I haven't
worries.
looked at the board's package, but is there a breakdown of the union jobs created, like by project or by job type?
I think it was in the CEO report, and I think that's where it was highlighted, at least in the minutes, 36,000 jobs. I don't know if anybody on staff would have a better breakdown. Alex, did you have a better breakdown of those jobs? Do you know? Or because I think they're in the regular agenda minutes. It talked about 36,000 union jobs across California. we don't have that information, it'll be good information. If you wanna, we can have the team follow up,
Okay.
see if they have more information. Alex?
Yeah, I think that the subject of union jobs is something that we could provide a little bit more data on. But I know that Howard did mention that in that data point in his CEO report.
Okay, well, I'll check the CEO report and then also maybe follow up if there's more, get more detail.
Yeah, send if you want to send Alex an email, and then maybe just, if you have more information, we can share with the group next month,
Okay,
or next year.
is that next year? Okay.
Other
Thanks.
questions, clarifying questions? Any public comment, concerns?
There are no hands raised at this time.
Great, I must have did a great job then. Uh, We'll move on to C5, the ad hoc committee formation. This will be our action item for us to then move forward, and then we'll have that information over to the board for the review and discussion. Alex, do you want to give us an introduction again there?
Sure thing. Thanks, Chair Hernandez.
You.
Good evening, members of the committee. Alex DeGiorgio, Senior Manager of Public Engagement. It's nice to be with you on this fine Monday evening. So, as Chair Hernandez mentioned, the updated work plan is going to be going before the board on Wednesday evening for approval. It's on the consent calendar. And as folks here probably recall, one of the primary aspects of the updated work plan was the formation of subject-specific ad hoc committees that will be created at the discretion of this body. So what we were hoping to do this evening for this first item is to put it to the members to determine which subject matters are of the highest priority and which you'd like to create an ad hoc committees for. And you don't have to, this isn't the only chance to do it, but since we're anticipating the approval from the board via consent, we thought it would be good to get started because we know people are eager to talk about some of these subjects. So we staff were just proposing to let you committee members determine which subjects you'd like to begin with. So I kind of turn it back over to you to decide what you'd like to start out with and who would like to essentially chair the ad hoc for each subject that's going to have an ad hoc.
All right, thank you very much, Alex. Appreciate that background introduction, so we can turn it over to the committee. Yes, Vice Chair.
Thank you, Alex. I would, I have a inclination for the sustainable, the resiliency hubs. And the reason for this is that we've had some interest from some of the other organizations who are helping promote that. We have somebody in line that will give us some information from the local community side. And we also have hopefully some information from AVA staff that will help us to understand best how AVA can help with resiliency hubs so that we can put a good foot forward, or a good picture forward, develop a design, not a design, but a proposal for a design for resiliency hubs, and maybe help the organizations get more promotion and to move forward. I think we do have at least 4 people here. We did talk about the other items as far as the ad hocs, and we probably need to solidify that a little bit. The ad hocs being the number of people that would be involved, the time limits, the goals, and what our goals should look like. And so that's pretty much what I'm hoping that we can kick off today. I'm hoping that one of the very eminent members that I'm looking at right now may perhaps chair one of the ad hoc committees, or if they would like to work with me, I'd be happy to help in any way I can.
Member Weiner, saw your hand raised.
Thank you very much, Chair Hernandez. When we talked about this issue last time, perhaps I'm mistaken, but my recollection was that we were less interested in ad hoc committees and more interested in, you might say, a committee of the whole, that all of us were interested in resiliency hubs, and that adding on another committee and another set of hours to devote to that committee wasn't necessarily the way we wanted to go, because we all wanted to know more about it and we're all interested in furthering that. So if I remember it correctly, then I think what you just said is something for all of us, that we'd all like to know more and further this.
Well, I think it's true that everybody would want to know more about it, but I think we'd have working ad hoc committees and then we'd bring that information back to the whole committee so we can discuss it further and what that looked like to maybe have a recommendation to the board of directors with staff support to move these items of interest forward and how we would maybe have more resilient hubs, or how do we look at energy resiliency or other items of interest based on our discussion at our meet and greet. So at a minimum, have a small group of committee members coming together, discussing what this looks like, and then being able to have more conversation at this committee meeting that is somewhat more time bound and focus not only around what we are interested in the work plan, but also the items being discussed at the board. So we're somewhat time constrained in this format to do that, but having the smaller ad hoc committees that you could be a part of or not, based on your interests, then can maybe spend more time offline discussing it further and then cooking something up that comes to this full committee, discussing it, and then moving it up to the board of directors, because there might be various subjects of interest, like looking at legislation. Is that something everybody wants to tackle here? What kind of lobbying or items of interest do we want to talk into? Or is it resilient hubs or energy or offshore events? We can talk a little about a lot of things, or talk more about a few things offline and get through maybe 3 or 4 items versus 1 item. So that's just that concept that we started working through, but it's really up to the will of this committee, how we want to proceed. So I understand from Vice Chair that there's an element of resilient hubs. I think, Jim, you had mentioned some interest, and I'll look to you because I think you maybe also you sent the email discussing some elements of the ad hoc committee. So do you want to speak to what you're interested in, or do you want to talk something separately?
Both.
Okay.
First, there is an item on resilience hubs and a grant
Correct.
agreement on the agenda next.
Yes.
So it might be good to wait until that item to decide if an ad hoc committee is appropriate, and if so, what their task is about resilience hubs. The other one is not on our agenda, but it's on the board agenda, is the review of the local development business plan. And I was thinking it'd be good to have an ad hoc committee to go into more depth on the review and to look at if it might be appropriate to propose another local development business plan, a second one, since the first one was only for 5 years and ended in 2023.
And I,
So-
yeah,
so
and I think
that's-
to your point about the agenda item, they're going to be providing information at the next meeting. That's we're not covering it here, but we can talk through that. It could be another thing that if you're interested in taking on, that's great too.
An ad hoc committee to review to dig into the review that's presented to the board on Wednesday and discuss whether it's appropriate to recommend to the board that a new one be developed.
Okay, so we have the resilient hubs, even though we have the item coming out from the grant for Emerald Cities to evaluate where these resilient hubs can be. We can talk through, there's more interest also about the local development business plan and getting an ad hoc committee of more than one person, of course.
Right, but not the committee of the whole.
No, 3
What
to
are
4.
the ad hoc committees' parameters? How many members are they limited to?
Less than, fewer than a quorum.
And
A quorum is 7 for this board.
so 6 or less?
Yes.
Okay.
Ideally, no more than 5. I'm gonna look to Member Harper, who has his hand up, if that's okay, and then I'll come to her. Member Pacheco. And then-
Oh, thanks. Thanks for raising this. I think that both of those areas sounds like potential good subjects for ad hoc committees. I also agree on maybe waiting until like the next item and presentation, getting through some questions on the Resilience Hub efforts that staff have been working on and thinking about how we can be additive. Like if there's a good working group that can come together and support staff and follow on next steps. And I have some more thoughts about that, but I'll save that for the next item. And then I think a review of the local development business plan. I'd love if we could all make it our homework to make sure we're able to watch the board meeting Wednesday and think about like how we might be additive as well coming out of there and figuring out, sifting through like the dense sets of initiatives and progress and updates and figuring out again, like based on our various expertises and communities that we're representing, what can a handful, 5 or 6 of us do to be additive. So I don't know. I think that's yeah, I guess I'm not jumping into preemptively deciding like today let's charter specific ad hoc committees, but I think that after the next item, at least on the Resilience Hub issue, and then following what comes out of Wednesday, I'd love to put those two on like the priority, thinking about who wants to be designated potentially to those committees if they're needed. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm all for ad hoc committees. Just want to make sure I'm kind of scoped clearly on like why and where we're needed.
Thank you, Member Harper. I hear you. In regards to the next item, there might be opportunity, maybe we hear it before we finish this conversation, but tonight's also the time to see who wants to raise their hands and take the lead on some of the items, but it can be evolving, it's not cemented. I'm going to go to Member Pacheco and then Member Landry, and then Member Bassoon.
So I'm interested in exploring offshore wind, or how AVA and the community of CACs can help development with the administration coming in. It's going to be even more imperative for California organizations to help move what's already started, because the feds are probably not going to be as helpful as we had planned on them being. I like both your ideas of Resiliency Center and LDBP. This is possibly something that could be part of an LDBP. As I discussed before, I see offshore wind, even if the resources are off of Humboldt, as local, if it includes our ports and includes economic development in AVA service territory, which it can in Stockton and Alameda. So yeah, I would, whether it would be a separate ad hoc committee or part of the LDBP, I would like to discuss offshore wind.
Thank you. Member Landry.
Yes, I would like to participate in the community resilient hubs. And I wanted to point out that last month, Local Clean Energy Alliance sent us a letter that they were extending an offer to organize a study session on resilience hubs for our committee. And so I think that this is something that we could all benefit from, since we all seem to have an interest, and maybe we can schedule them, schedule a, or I should say, agendize them in a future meeting. So this is the letter. And then secondly, on the local business development plan, which I would like to participate in also, I think we need to look at what's actually been accomplished and where we want to go the next 5 years, and just look at what the actual performance has been. Maybe suggestions for updating it. So I'd like to participate with Jim on that committee also.
Perfect.
Or the ad hoc committee.
Thank you, member. And in regards to the Local Clean Energy Alliance, I think that committee for resilient hubs or what have you could engage separately, discuss what that would look like, and then bring it back to the board, to the committee, so we can figure out how we can agendize them
Correct.
into the conversation here at the committee, and then leverage their talents and time to recommend some solutions based on whatever staff might be working with, what the board's intentions are, and where we're interested here. So I think we can pull them in properly into our conversation on that ad hoc committee, and then bring it to the full board. I'm going to look to Member Bakusun.
As I kind of want to follow up on what Member Weiner said, is that, so if we're doing the, I don't understand procedurally how an ad hoc committee would feed into what we're doing. And what, I'm so bad with names, but what you were just saying about what the Local Clean Energy Alliance was offering to teach us, I think that's sort of what the origination of these ad hoc committees came from, is that they offered to teach us more about resilience hubs because we wanted to know about resilient hubs. I don't see, I don't mean to be negative, but I don't see how an ad hoc committee feeds the whole group. Because if there's 6 of us and we're not a quorum, do we come then and have comments that we offer the group? It just doesn't seem logistically the way the system is designed, that if we break off, it seems like we should, as a group, learn together and have discussions. And if we need to take that offline as a group that's still publicly available, maybe that's what we should do. Because if we're talking about a resilient hub and we learn about it and say it's the 3 of us that do this, how does that then feed into this group? I mean,
Sure, and I think it's a good question. I think ideally, we work towards building the program or presentation so we can all really understand what we want to get out of it, and we evolve it. So we start with a smaller committee and then bring it to the full body here, and then take it up with staff support, what it looks like. So we have some ideas and concepts and themes we want to go through as that small ad hoc committee comes together, formalizes the content for the whole group learning experience, and then we elevate that interest and position with staff support to the board of directors to then have something actionable come through it. So we're going to start cooking with some of the ingredients, getting it ready here, tasting, see if it does well, we like it or don't like it, refine it collectively, either together here in the session or through the ad hoc committee, and then once it's ready for prime time, we bring it up to the board of directors. So it's a work in progress, iterative. We can have double loop learning going back and forth. We could bring it to the whole committee. Of course, it's really the will of this committee, what we'd like to see and do. We'd like the members, yes, please.
excuse me, but the board of directors, I mean, we are commenting on what the board of directors is working on. So shouldn't we then know what their priorities are in order for us to figure out how we should prioritize our support for them?
Good question. I don't have all the answers. We know that the priorities are based on providing clean and renewable energy and good paying jobs locally. And how we do that is very, of course, and getting to the net zero. I have to go to member vice chair and then member Les. We would like to.
I just want to throw those out as
Yeah,
questions.
no, of course. And this is dialogue.
Okay, just continuing on the discussion. One of the reasons why I believe that the ad hoc committee is necessary is because there's only so many people who are available at one time, and there's the problem of making quorum or not making quorum. And I think we can pretty much get a taste of this just right now, is how many people would want to serve on the resiliency hubs ad hoc, the proposed ad hoc committee. How many people would be able to go to visit a resiliency hub off the time of this normal meeting cadence? And how many people would be able to sit through, say, a instructional meeting from AVA and maybe another organization on resiliency hubs? And then how many people would be interested in putting together a product such as a presentation based on those instructional or informational meetings? And so the reason for the ad hoc would be, I do believe is that there's just not enough time in the world for all of us to address all of these issues. And at the same time, we have the restriction of quorum. And if we do meet with more than 7 people, then we have a quorum, and then we have to post a meeting and all those other items that are necessary. But that's my opinion. I do think that we can, you know, raise our hands. Who would be interested in doing the Resiliency Hub today? We got 1, 2, 3.
I'm not sure.
So anybody on?
Yes.
In terms of an ad hoc committee, what we haven't said is, how many hours is it going to take to learn about resiliency hubs? When would we meet? So all those things need to be worked out. If there are only 4 of us who are interested in that, that should be relatively easy. But I do think that if the group that Member Landry was talking about was willing to make a presentation, that might be one that you wanted everybody to hear. I think that's what you were saying.
Yes, I was.
So you might lead off with that and then have an ad hoc committee that evolves from that initial instruction, because then we'll all know more, and people will also know more about whether this is the way they want to spend their time.
I do agree with you there. I certainly agree with you the whole time. I do believe that, I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No, please.
So I think that would be a great way to start. Just kind of outline what this ad hoc committee would look like. We do need to have somebody put this together. And maybe, does anybody volunteer for that? I mean, I could maybe work with Adrian to get some parameters of how to shape the committee without breaking any rules, and then.
I think part of the committee is to have no more than 5 to 6 people. The time bound is 6 months. If you meet on a monthly basis, ideally, or so, every other month, at least getting a work plan together. But this is also an opportunity to engage the alternates. So we have a bench in the future, because not alternates do not come to this meeting. They're welcome, but they do not attend. This is also an opportunity to engage them in the project that they may not be at. So if we do fall off, we have alternates who are engaged in what we're doing here. So that's really the big opportunity to get some of the alternates involved when they're not coming to these meetings. So that builds sort of succession planning. We have one of our members, alternates, Rachel, I believe she has deep knowledge, but she's an alternate. And so if engaging her as well would be great. So if she ever came on as a member of this committee, then she's up to speed. I think that's the challenge. When I was an alternate on the board, like I had to always catch up and like, what did I miss? You gotta be part of the story the whole time, because if not, it's hard to catch up on those chapters you missed. From experience.
Well,
Let me see, who was a member? Yeah, and then,
So
member Harper. Oh, I'll go member Lutz, then Harper, and then Balkusun. And I appreciate staff's patience while we wait for the next item. So thank you. Yes.
Yeah, I was envisioning the process as the ad hoc committee would be obviously a smaller group that would go off and develop do some research, develop a proposal and a presentation, sort of like the ones we get from staff, bring it back to the CAC, give the presentation, have a discussion. If the CAC is good with the proposal, vote to recommend it to the board. If the CAC is not good with the proposal, they send it back to the ad hoc to work on some changes. That was my idea of how an ad hoc committee would work.
Yes, I support that. Because
Okay.
then once you have that buy-in from the committee, we can move it up to the board and get resources and attention to that proposal, that presentation, and then a hoc committee member or lead could present it to the board
Right,
or do it in partnership with the chair report.
right.
Member Harper?
Just had one quick clarifying question on, for ad hoc committees in general, is this something that like Ava staff, like would there be an assigned member to support that? Or would this particularly just be members organizing themselves, reaching out to potential staff for supportive research, things like that? How does that work? So I understand there might be a big draw on staff time if there's.
Yeah, I believe staff will be supporting, but I'll let Alex speak to it.
Yeah,
Okay.
thanks for the question. I think the idea of the ad hoc is that the committee members will be working with each other. If they want to reach out to staff for support, they're welcome to do so just like they are currently. So if at any point a member of the committee wants to reach out to staff, we will certainly respond. We won't be facilitating the meetings or participating in the ad hoc meetings or participating in them. But if there are questions that arise there that we can help answer, then we're certainly going to make ourselves available to do so. Does that answer the question?
Yep, that's helpful. Thank you.
I think very specifically, if we had, we didn't have a presentation about resiliency hubs from staff yet, did we?
No, we
one?
have a grant that's going to be coming forth for us to recommend for approval
Okay.
to the board.
And soon?
Right
or-
after this.
Okay.
And this is a working topic. I mean,
Right.
we can make you say this is what it is. We can be evolving it throughout. Ideally, we kick off one of these ad hocs, at least at a minimum, have a group that maybe wants to work through it. And the decision of who's in this or not can be done after the fact. But ideally, we start working towards an ad hoc committee, a presentation, something that's sunset within 6 months that we can bring back to the board mid-year for discussion and maybe recommendation.
Well, because, I mean, local clean energy wants to train us. So if the first step was having them come and speak to a few of us, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
But I don't have the bandwidth right now to go and do the research myself to figure out what a resiliency hub is. But I'd like to tour one. I'd like to become informed.
Okay.
So within the auspices of informing us, I'm on board. I just don't, I mean, I think it would be a lot of research to become like experts on this.
Oh, we're not asking the experts, but Jim, you have a question or comment?
Well, on the, part of the grant is to do some community workshops about it. That would be
Yes.
very appropriate.
Yeah.
CAC, at least the ad hoc committee members to attend.
I have a clarifying question maybe for staff about the Local Clean Energy Alliance. Is there a conflict of having them present or engage with us? I just want to see, I think there was some concern there or not.
So there could be a conflict with any organization if they are submitting a response to an RFP, for example. And then, so in those cases, then there would probably have to be parameters about what kind of access they would have to the committee. So there are legal constraints once an organization is a respondent or request. So if LCEA falls into the category, then that might complicate things. They may be, and I'm speaking hypothetically here because I'm not privy to all of that, but if, for example, an organization were a respondent to an RFP and then they wanted to come present to this body outside of something like a simple public comment, they may be faced with a decision on whether to withdraw their proposal or decide to just limit themselves to the public comment like everyone else.
And to further the lack of conflict being involved in the presentation with the ad hoc committee would be something that if they want to lend their time, they could do so more easily
Yes.
without being conflict.
Yes. I mean, since the ad hoc meetings will be entirely organized by those members who wish to organize them, and they're not subject to the Brown Act, and staff won't be involved in those meetings, then it's fine to engage with LCA or any other organization in that regard.
So they're more free to engage in the ad hoc committee than constrained in this format. And then from that can lend their talents into a presentation that the ad hoc can present to the group without being conflict, but working with staff to answer any other questions you may have about engaging an organization like that. Member Wyman.
I don't see any conflict in someone presenting to us about the subject in general, as long as they're not referencing their grant proposal.
Yeah, and from a legal expertise, who you have, of course. Alex, did you hear that too? I think you're on mute, sir.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I did. I think the issue starts to become of wanting to make sure that no organization gets preferential treatment. So that's why, I mean, the public comment aspect is designed for any organization to use the allotted time, but to devote agenda time to any particular organization, that it's not that that can't be done. It's just that then issues of conflict could arise. Yeah, again, if they were responding to a request for proposals or something of that, or if they were under contract or
Clarifying question. So what it sounds like is if there's a contractual or a proposal on the board or on the table, then it could potentially cause a conflict. And perhaps if a meeting or a presentation or that we could just run it by the staff and say, we're gonna meet with this organization, is it okay? This is what it's about. Would that be possible to just kind of getting that clarity and go ahead from staff?
Yes, and in fact, you wouldn't even necessarily, I mean, it's great to coordinate, but you wouldn't necessarily need our consent to do so, because if it's being done on an ad hoc basis, it's on your own personal time, it's your own research, and it's not subject to the Brown Act. So it's great to let us know you're doing it so that we can be well coordinated. But on an ad hoc basis, you're free to receive presentations from whatever sources you deem appropriate, really.
Can I ask a quick follow-up? Oh, go ahead.
Harper.
Oh, sorry, I thought is there any kind of like just disclosure policy for, I'm sure that this can't have been the first time this has come up. If there's, an org that has like a public education mission, and wants to make a presentation, is there any kind of like, they have to start with a disclosure of pending past or current contracts with the agency? Because I could see, I totally see where it's coming from. It could get complicated, but at the same time, like it does kind of pigeonhole the whole CAC off from what might be really valuable educational presentations. So I'm just wondering if there's any kind of wiggle room to avail ourselves to that.
Yeah, I think disclosure would certainly help, but the disclosure might result in revealing a conflict, and at that point there may be a decision that the organization has to make on which, if it wants to be able to have agendized time during the official committee proceedings, then it might have to withdraw its application. It would be something that I honestly would want to consult with our legal counsel about, but disclosure would be the first step.
Okay. And then one other potential wrench is thinking about like in contracting with like service area wide community engagement vendors. If I don't know if there's a way to think of the CAC ahead of time as part of the community to be engaged, or if there's a reason that hasn't been done too. Like I said, I'm new to this, and if there's a reason that's not being done, I totally understand. Just trying to get some clarity. Just because we all represent different parts of the service area and probably provide a lot of good insights into programs.
I guess I don't understand the question, Member Harper.
Oh, it's just, so the question is just, so if in the instance where Ava is working with a particular community engagement vendor, as opposed to, having to think through like disclosure issues, like actually thinking about way ahead of time in contracting, that there's going to be potential work products that are like a presentation to the CAC and like it literally as a deliverable of, hey, chat with 15, 16 folks from across the service area that might be able to provide feedback directly. But like I said, I might be, please like counter, looks like Heidi, you have your hand up.
Go ahead. Member.
Yeah, am I allowed to speak?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. I think maybe some of these questions might be answered in the presentation coming up.
Okay, perfect. One final comment, and then we'll see what we want to do with the ad hoc formation. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
We'll get there. Member Landry.
Yes, I think we should probably proceed, Alex, with getting maybe a legal opinion to see if there's any potential conflict. But what I heard you say also is if they weren't submitting an RFP for a resilient hub proposal, then there may not be a conflict. So it's only when they're engaging in some kind of contract proposal or request for proposal.
I don't know if it's limited to those circumstances, but those circumstances certainly do create a new legal issue. But yes, given the discussion here, I think it'd be good for us to check in with legal counsel on what the parameters there can be. I think we just all have to keep in mind that if one group is permitted time on the agenda and the floor, so to speak, then the body has to consider what are the parameters for any other group being able to do it. And certainly when it comes to vendors or groups who think they might become vendors in the future, then that's something to consider too, because then, it just has to be ecumenical and, available to any other organization.
Yeah.
But let's get some legal counsel and report back on that question.
Yeah, thank you. That'd be helpful.
That's specifically about the clean energy training. Is that
Yes.
your question?
Yes.
Can I,
Yes, please.
is it, so it sounds to me like a lot of the people.
Microphone.
Oh, it sounds to me like the group wants to try an ad hoc committee related to resiliency hubs, right?
Yes.
So should we just do it as a trial, like a pilot or something?
We can start with that. We can continue the item also as we formate. Doesn't have to be the only action. They just make one committee, but we can also bring it back to create additional committees in the future. So if there's a desire of this CAC to inform at least one committee for resilient hubs, and know that we'll have a presentation shortly thereafter. Do we need to formalize that, Adrian, or no?
At least a chair and the members, I think that's our understanding of. Alex, would you like to?
Sorry, could you repeat that, Adrian?
Yes, the goals for this item would be to appoint a chair for the ad hoc and establish a membership, or?
Yes, thank you, Adrian. Yeah, if the sole subject right now that the committee is interested in forming an ad hoc on is resilience hubs, then yeah, the proposal would be to identify who the membership is, and then when they intend to report back. And I do think, though, it may be worth waiting to hear from Heidi and her report, because I think it's going to touch on some of these subjects, and it may influence who wants to participate on that resilience hubs ad hoc and things of that sort. But yes, the goal of this item was to identify the subjects, and again, not comprehensively, just for the moment, for the time being, and the membership.
Procedurally, do we then continue this item and hear the presentation on the Emerald Cities grant? All right, so I still see hands up, so I'm going to go to Member Harper and the Member Pacheco.
I think, yeah, I would move to do that so far and as we can take a potential action item out of the next item to think about if there's an ad hoc committee necessary, if that's something that we're able to do. Like, right, as long as we don't forego the option to create a potential committee today. I'd love to hear from Heidi and the development team to
Yes, I think we'll
think
move
about
the
more about what the
A5,
scope of it
continue
is.
the item until after the presentation. And then we'll come back to the C5, if that's okay with the committee.
Yeah.
Right, great. And Member Pacheco.
Sure. So I think we're figuring this out here and now, but a thing is I am really interested in being a member of the LDPP ad hoc committee. And in some of the conversation, I think one of the things that was proposed is, well, let's do the resiliency and then see how it goes. I would like to have a standing LDPP ad hoc committee by February, if that's possible. I'm not sure what the timeline or how we do the implementation is on this, but anyway, my point being, I don't want to wait until the end. I don't want to wait till we work out all the kinks on the resiliency hub, which is very valid, but
Yes.
yeah.
We can have more than one. So
Okay.
if you want to move, have members and raise your hand about the local development business plan. I think Pacheco, Lutz, and Landry is 3 so far. And then member Lashkman, PJ. So that's 4. Anybody else? And member Bakusun. Okay, so that's 5. All right, do we need a vote on that?
I don't think we need to.
Sure, yes. Yes. Do we? I'm
mean-
just looking at the items as action items, so I just want to make sure.
I think, oh, excuse me, if I may, I think it would be good to memorialize who's going to be on the ad hoc so we can make sure to stay on top of quorum.
Perfect.
But that doesn't require a vote. It's just who volunteers.
Agreed.
So we're memorializing the members. Okay, so for the local development business plan, member Landry, member Lutz, member Bakusun, member Lashman, and who else? Member Pacheco. Who is our chair?
And you got it already. I'll
Who's our-
chair it.
Your chair, member Lutz. Okay, so that's our first committee. And with that, we're gonna go to the resilient presentation and come back to see if we formalize a second one.
Yes.
Is that fine? All right.
I have ideas for at least one more.
Okay, so we're
ad
gonna
hoc
go.
committee, But I'm willing to wait till after Heidi's presentation.
Perfect, okay, so we'll continue this item so we can hear the item about the grant proposal. And then we'll bring back this item C on the resilient hubs and any other discussion. Perfect, all right, with that, and do we need to take any public comment? Do we have any public comment around this item before we move on? I just want to make sure I address that.
There are no hands raised at this time.
All right, perfect. So we'll move to item C6 and we'll come back to C5 for any further conversation. Heidi, you have the floor. Thank you for your patience, and I know JP is there too. Thank you very much for hanging in there. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Adrian, do you have the presentation or should I pull it up?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Share and enjoy.
All right, can you see that clearly?
Yes.
Okay. So the moment you have all been waiting for, you can change the slide, please, Adrian. Today, I'll chat with you a bit about the work that we've been doing around resilience hubs, specifically for the grant. Some context before is that when we were drafting the scope for even just the RFP to be published, we did engage several community members and a 3 organizations, which helped us kind of just get a better sense of what that scope should look like. So today I'll talk about the grant recommendation, which is to Emerald Cities Collaborative. I'll chat about what the outcomes of the grant will be, the partnerships that will be involved for the grant, a little bit about the budget and evaluation criteria, and I'll chat about timeline. I'll also be able to answer a couple questions about how the CAC and board might be engaged through this grant. You can go to the next slide, please. So the Resilience Hub initiative came out of a response from a couple of the community surveys, community workshops that we did last year. A lot of what we heard was that the community wanted more community ownership of certain initiatives. That is how one of our the community EV charging grant also came about. And this is another initiative to try to meet those needs. We also believe that the community has a better sense in terms of what the community's needs are. So it would be great to engage a community organization for that reason. And this grant, which is called the Community Organizing and Capacity Building for Resilience Hubs, will have about 3 or 4 deliverables, workshops and case studies, which I'll touch on in the next few slides. A resilience readiness tool, which would assess a site's resiliency, and it would identify between 30 to 50 sites that could be eligible to become resilience hubs. The grant is also part of a larger initiative, which will offer technical assistance and solar and storage incentives to those potential sites. Next slide, please. So, okay, here we go. The recommendation that we're making is to award a grant to Emerald Cities Collaborative. The grant would be of up to $300,000 over 18 months. And the grant objective, as we mentioned, is to empower local communities to address the needs, resilience needs of the community, since they are better positioned to understand what those needs are. Emerald Cities Collaborative is a local nonprofit, national nonprofit with a local Northern California chapter, which specializes in climate policy, outreach, and stakeholder engagement. That would be the people that we are working the closest with, is that Northern California chapter. This is a great opportunity for AVA because from the conversations we've had with ECC, we see that they're a skilled and dedicated team. They have experience in the community, they know the community, and have expertise in equity-centered development. They are rooted in community relationships and trust and focus on economic inclusion. Next slide. So some of the outcomes that we're anticipating for this grant, as I mentioned, is the first phase is to really use 2 workshops to help and support AVA and the consultants' refinement of what it means to be a resilience hub. So the grantee would be supporting and with that task as well by conducting 2 workshops that will focus specifically on defining that. The second deliverable is around this resilience readiness tool, which again, with ECC's expertise, they have listed a number of characteristics that they would have to assess a site for in order to see if they're eligible for technical assistance or for a solar and storage incentive to become a resilience hub. Next slide. So out of that, from those screenings and assessments, ideally the grantee will find approximately 50 potential resilience hub sites that have passed the readiness tool. And they would share those sites and refer them to the technical assistance and solar and storage opportunities. One thing worth noting is that the original term of the grant was actually over 3 years, up to $300,000 over 3 years. And after conversations with the Emerald Cities Collaborative, we've decided that in order to really accelerate the impact of some of these learning outcomes when it comes to the workshops and the case studies, was to have the information basically just ready upfront faster so that we could then inform other decisions. It would also allow the organization to work and collaborate more with other local organizations like Little Manila Rising, Reclaim Our Power, APEN, and it would also mean a larger annual disbursement since it's a shortened term. So we think that by adjusting this term and really getting clear on what the scope of the grant is and the deliverables are, we can better meet the goals of creating community-owned resilience hubs. Next slide. So one of the reasons why we believe Emerald City's ECC is a good organization to collaborate with on this effort is because of their organizational capacity. They have experience leading programs of this size or working with grants of this size and larger. Their annual organizational budget is of 12 million, and they've managed grants similar or larger than this one. So we believe that they are capable of delivering high impact results that align with AVA's objectives. Next slide. Some of the other organizations that will be involved. So ECC would be the grantee, the grant recipient, and they want to include in their scope also working with the LCEA. LCEA would serve as a support role and in delivering the workshops and in supporting any site assessments that ECC might need. Collective Resilience will also be involved. They will be providing the Resilience Hub case studies and research. And other organizations such as APEN, Collective Resilience, East Oakland Collective, and Reclaim Our Power will also be involved in a similar role of attending workshops and supporting ECC and LCEA in delivering the information. If you look at the breakdown here on the right, you can see ECC would be awarded approximately 27% of grant funds. LCEA would receive a little bit more at 37%. The CBO stipends are approximately 20%, and all other indirect costs and meeting expenses are approximately 16% of the grant funds. Next slide. This is the way that we essentially evaluated the grant. We received 2 proposals and moved forward with ECC. We went back and forth a bit with them about clarifying the scope, and because they excelled in some of these evaluation criteria, they are the recommendation that we're making. Next slide. So the timeline that we have proposed is, as we issued the RFP in August, we were doing interviews and evaluations, reviewing proposals through September, October, November. And here we are, basically on Wednesday, we'll be presenting similar to the board for approval of authorizing the CEO to execute and negotiate the grant agreement, which we hope will be then signed in January. The project kickoff would happen towards the end of January, with the first workshop happening in February and a second workshop in March. For site assessments, the site outreach would begin in April. One of the things that I wanted to mention for the CAC, as they're interested in learning more about this, is I do encourage, as these other CBOs are getting involved, it might be a good opportunity, because these meetings and workshops will be open to the public for you to potentially learn a little bit more about what a Resilience Hub is then. Apart from that, we will also be working with LCEA and ECC on bringing more information collectively with AVA involved to the board and CAC. I think that might be the last slide.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Heidi. Questions? Vice Chair, then Peter.
Heidi, that was terrific. Unfortunately, I am really dumb. And so I've been trying to, while you were talking, look up what a Resilience Hub is. Because I get a lot about community outreach and process and empowerment, but I'm trying to figure out from a building materials point of view, or what services they are. Number one, what a hub is. I gather it might provide emergency services to people. I don't know whether it provides medical help in the case of an emergency. I know that there's a role for power to be available in case of an emergency, which would be Ava's role in some
Mhm.
ways. But I'm trying to figure out what the actual outcomes are, other than a feeling of inclusion or empowerment, how people's lives are better. Because one of the things I'm getting from what happened in November is that there are a lot of middle-class people running around doing studies, but people really want their lives to be better. So I want to know what a resilience hub will actually result in for the people it serves.
The reason, yeah, you probably are getting a lot of different things is because a resilience hub can be many different things. And that's part of what we want to engage both the community around. I think one of the ways that ECC and LCA are thinking about it too is there's a distinction between even just the CMF program, right, that will offer resilience hubs to critical municipal facilities. And this essentially fills the gap that may not meet the community's needs, in the sense of if the community is able to understand, or an organization like LCEA and ECC is able to understand what the community seeks beyond the energy resilience, then the idea is that the technical assistance support would help them reach that to be able to provide the services to the community. And so it would improve the lives of the community by understanding what the local community needs and then trying to deliver on those needs or respond to those needs.
But is this like a food bank or recreational facilities, or what are we actually talking about in terms of real services? Because what I'm hearing is a lot of sociology, but I'm not hearing steel in the ground. I don't know what they do. And maybe that's all premature because you want the community to decide, but I'm trying to get some feeling for what the outcomes are in the end that we're spending money on, other than a lot of people feel included.
I'll jump in here. I think the definition of a resilience hub is still fairly ambiguous. It can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And so that is the intent of this exercise with the grant, is to help define what services are provided, who the communities are that the services are made available to, and under what circumstances, and then what are the operating conditions under which those services are provided. So you were accurately identifying that Ava's role in this is largely on the kind of energy resilience side, like that a facility continues to be able to provide, to operate, to provide those services. But part of the exercise will be kind of a definition of resilience hubs, as well as eligibility criteria for what that could be. So it could be a food distribution center, or an information distribution center, or a place where people, charge their communication devices during an outage or an emergency. So those are 3 examples. It's not necessarily for Ava to decide what those eligible services are, but part of what we will be doing will be kind of defining and constraining what the services are that will be eligible for Ava's technical assistance in solar and storage program. But we, we feel that like it's the community's place to decide what are the services that they're looking for.
Thank you.
Vice Chair, then Member Landry.
Well, that was a lot of information. I have less questions and more questions. Thank you. So I'm still thinking about the ad hocs on this. And I mean, a lot is being decided already. A lot is in play. But of course, there's, again, a lot of ambiguity. So essentially, what I'm kind of wondering is what about these sites that would be chosen? These potentially 50 sites, what are the benefits besides just being a great hub and having that plaque on there saying I'm a resiliency hub? But what are the benefits? They're going to have solar, they're going to have battery. et cetera? And what are the costs versus how would it impact their budgets? If, you know, a resiliency hub, how would it affect an organization's budget? And then what is a quality site for this? And I know you're doing this grant to just define that. But how can an ad hoc committee perhaps help with any of this from the community advisory board involvement? And so that's kind of my question. I know I just asked a lot of questions, sorry.
Your question, how can an ad hoc, sorry,
Mainly, yeah.
Susan,
that's
can you,
it.
yeah,
How can
clarify
we
the
help?
question?
Let's synthesize that to how can we help?
Well, that's a good question. So I think the goal here is, you know, we've gotten a lot of requests from the community to fund Resilience Hub activities, and part of that is defining Resilience Hubs. So we've set up, you know, a grant to help define Resilience Hubs with community feedback, and a technical assistance program to help those potential sites get the technical assistance they need to become Resilience Hubs, and a solar and storage incentive program to provide incentives to develop Resilience Hubs. That's all, you know, it's been in response to a lot of good work over the last couple of years. I think our feeling here is that the community is strongly pushing for Resilience Hubs. So we're being responsive to that push by putting these programs in place and trying to work with the community to help define what those needs are, because this has come from the community and through this body and through the board to really push for these Resilience Hubs. So that's why we're asking kind of more community clarification to help define those services and the eligibility criteria of Resilience Hubs, because it's been such a strong push from the community.
I'm going to jump in here for a second. So based on your timeline that you have shared, we're expecting the first project kickoff workshop in February, and then have a Q1 update workshop and a site outreach. Are those two workshops internal, or are these external to community members?
They will be open to community members. Mhm.
So if we have, and I'm going to jump back and forth a little bit, if we have this ad hoc committee of 4 or 5 or 6 people, I would expect those members to attend those workshops and also participate in site outreach. Because I don't think the whole committee would have bandwidth to go to those workshops. I think part of the commitment of this ad hoc committee would be engaged with this ECC, maybe LCEA, on these workshops that are open to the public. Of course, anybody can go, but sort of ensuring those ad hoc committee members do attend, are engaged, and really being able to bring back more information to the committee whenever this grantee or grantees can bring information back to the CAC and or board. This smaller group is really subject matter experts because they've engaged further, not to exclude anybody, but there's that responsibility and accountability that the ad hoc committee members will then show up to these workshops, take notes, go to the sites, and be the key experts. So when it does come in front of the CAC and to the board, they have better insights to guide our knowledge, expertise, and recommendations, and really refine what role AVA will have as part of Resilient Hubs, and that's what we would recommend, or how we could support, let's say, with the local business development plan, and what elements might shape that as well. So I think that's what I would see. I'll go to Member Bakassoum, but I think Member Landry's first. That's what I'm conceptualizing here. And generally speaking, if I saw some head nods, I think that would make sense. No? Okay. So Member Landry?
Let my colleague go first.
Member Bakassoum,
Yeah,
she's saying
and
no.
then
So it takes me a really long time to figure out what you guys are doing, and I kind of understand now. Sorry, it takes me so long. So when I used to run these grants for EPA, this is an environmental justice community. These organizations that you're listed here are very familiar organizations that have been leading amazing air quality issues related to the Port of Oakland, and just great leaders. So when you're saying, let the community lead and tell us what the needs are, I get it, because they've been struggling for how many years? Hundreds of years, 20 years, with trucks coming through the community. I mean, so these are experts. These are community experts who can tell us and feed information to us. I honestly don't feel, in terms of advising, they're going to be the best advisors to Ava of anybody. So I think that if we can support them and understand them and go to their meetings and listen, that would be the best thing we could possibly do. Because we don't know more than them, because they've been living this stuff. So I'm just really impressed with these organizations that you've selected. And it seems like I know it's very hard for us to say, follow the community, follow people who've been, in this situation. And we always try to be the experts, but they're the experts. And my suggestion is that we go and learn from them by going to their meetings and learning that way, rather than taking it offline and coming up with our own, just being good listeners and using our expertise to support, I think would be the best role for us after seeing who's here.
Thank you. Member Landry?
Um,
And then after Member Lutz, we'll have Member Harper.
Yes, I would concur with my colleague, and I think the other thing that we can do in addition to going to the workshop.
Cynthia, if you can speak
Oh,
closer
I'm
to the microphone.
sorry.
No worries. Just bring it closer. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Again, I agree with my colleague's comment, and I think the other thing that we can do by participating in the community workshop is to also bring back and highlight the needs, the feedback of the community also. So I'd like to go there and learn and listen. And the other thing I wanted to say earlier is that my understanding of resilience hubs is these are sort of safe places perhaps for when there's wildfires and other, effects of climate change, and also when there's power outages, there could be services provided such as food refrigeration, cooling and heating centers, air filtration, and access to portable solar batteries, which was highlighted in the letter again that the local Clean Energy Alliance sent in when they discussed the workshop that they were willing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Lutz, defer to Member Harper. Member Harper.
Thanks. I had a handful of questions and an answer, I think, to Vice Chair Souza's first question around, who might be, or what might be the potential use of an ad hoc committee for supporting this effort. So the first question, so it's a 2-year period and $300,000 or
A year and a half.
or a year and a half. Okay. And is that inclusive also like of all of San Joaquin County as well, or just city of Stockton? In terms of the San Joaquin County area, or
The idea is that by actually shortening the grant term, that we could basically identify whether these sites could be identified, and kind of gathering all this information would then allow us to proceed if potentially we want to extend the grant based on our findings. We'd be able to do so and expand regionally. Right now, we're looking to ECC to be the ones who sort of guide the sites that they're presenting to us.
and then
But it should be throughout Ava's service area.
okay, and then so for the public events, are those in-person events, or are they going to be, there's going to be some remote, some mixed?
Mixed, yeah, because it won't just be those 2 workshops. They will continue to have, I think, 2 more in the year. And so, yes, the idea is most will be in person, and then there will be some opportunities for virtual participation as well.
Cool. Okay, awesome. So a couple of quick thoughts is, in terms of how we might contribute, I totally agree, in terms of us, the folks who are most interested in this area to be able to attend those workshops, I think would be great. And, also help get the word out to folks in our networks, potentially work with our members on the AVA board of directors too, to help get the word out, kind of raise the profile of what y'all are trying to do. And then I think like out of that, like as you kind of progress and learn more about the community, just thinking about answering like how do we ensure there's equitable representation across AVA service territory for resilience hubs, knowing that you're going to run into folks in various stages of readiness and, however that's defined, ownership, et cetera. Folks who have understanding or acknowledgement of what a resilience hub is in like government terms, as opposed to like doing all of the folk. There are a lot of groups I found like in some of my outreach that were doing a lot of the work that a quote unquote resilience hub does, but would really have no idea. They would look at you blankly if you said the word resilience hub. So just thinking about like, how do you make it a capacity building exercise in that way too? I know that that's like in the name of the grant. I just think it's a really big service area, a small budget, and a huge ask to try to make it really inclusive and equitable. I'm really excited it's happening though. And yeah, would love, like I said, to be an extension of the outreach and help out in any way that I can. And I think, yeah, just help to think about what the follow-on phases of that could look like based on what you learned.
Thank you.
Member Left.
No, Davis asked my question of how are you covering Stockton and the East County areas? But so it was already addressed.
So the question, is there a need for more budget, or is there like do we expect any kind of change order request, or should we have contingency in this budget to support it better?
The agreement, I believe, will state, if approved by the board, it's an option to extend the grant, depending on how it goes, how things go.
Extend it in timing or funding?
Fundings.
Well, I think that the grant itself is for $300,000. If we need to extend or expand, then we'll have to come back, to the board for that, or go through a required public process, just like we did with the grant solicitation to identify ECC as our current grant recipient.
If there was a motion on the table to say up to 20% more, would that make things easier, or if needed, without having to come back to the board? Or is that something that's not looked for favorable?
No, I think that we've agreed on the scope, the major scope deliverables and the grant dollars with ECC and their partner organizations on this. I think we've got a decent amount of money for 18 months worth of work, and our intent here is to kind of expedite learning, which is why we shortened the grant. So let's learn what we can out of this. This is a complicated kind of new topic, and so let's let that play out, and then we can come back to the CAC and the board with recommendation on next steps.
Thank you, JP. Member Weiner.
Yeah, I'm in accord with, let's see how this one works out, and it can be a first step of many. It occurs to me that this will be much more successful if there's cooperation, collaboration among agencies. We're the energy part, but is there a part where there's an educational organization that's involved, or emergency medical services, other social services? What are we doing to broaden the scope of people listening to this who might be providing the services that people want?
I think that's a fair point. And I still think we'll kind of come out of since we haven't really defined what a resilience hub is, nor the eligible services that are being provided, you know, the outcome of this may very well be what are those other services and what else is needed to support ongoing operations, to you know, to provide those services that are outside of the scope of what AVA is providing technical assistance and funding for.
I mean, to your point, it might be good to present to member cities, regional partners, Alameda County Fire Department, the Alameda County Health Department, and other organizations that are maybe going to help bolster resilient hubs, even like CAL FIRE. I mean, I'm part of the Alameda County Fairgrounds, and I know we use them for vaccine and testing and even staging during the Lightning Complex. And I already see some of those facilities being used for resilient hubs in Pleasanton, but for the county beyond. Those elements, how you can use that to make sure those facilities are viable when electricity is down with storage, but also complementing the services when people need the Red Cross and making sure they have those resources available when they're supported and staged appropriately. Right. Where you can. But that maybe it's gonna be more about get the findings and then do the roadshow or talk to partner agencies and making sure they have eyes on this and they can use this information to build upon it. But AVA's being the leader and helping identify what is a resiliency hub, what are the 50 sites, what are the gaps, what can we close, but what can other agencies support in closing those gaps, and then move on to other facilities and expanding that to the next 50 or 100, next change in the community. With that, any other comments, public comment?
There are no hands raised this time.
All right, any other clarifying questions if not ready for a motion or?
Just two things, just quickly, it's good to see LCEA, who, ironic from what I'm about to say, I don't ever remember a meeting where they haven't had at least one representative, but I think this might be the first meeting where they haven't had one or two representatives, so it's good to see them as one of our CBO partners. And this is just a comment generally, both about this grant proposal and others. I know we've brought it up in the past, but I don't think we've ever moved to make it happen, which is that I'm happy to see that there's the additional points for union labor in the rating of the grant proposal ease. But a thing that we've talked about is building into, or we have brought it before, is building into the grant proposals that any applicant, whether or not they're union, that they agree to neutrality agreement with their employees should their employees try to organize. When this agency was founded, in fact, the company that was going to be our original call center explicitly refused to have a neutrality agreement should their employees want to organize. So it's too late for this, but for future grants, I'd like to have this discussed and put before the board that one of the requirements or extra points, I think it should be a requirement that any applicant agrees to a neutrality agreement, whether or not they're union. Thank you.
Right. Thank you. So I think I heard you say that. I mean, having that criteria neutrality agreement, I mean, identified there or discussed is important. I can raise that to the board of directors too on this item. So let's bring that attention to theirs. And I'm hearing from our clerk that we do have one hand raised, Local Clean Energy Alliance.
Aya Paz, recognized for 3 minutes.
Hello, hi, yes, thank you. My hands were slightly too slow in raising my hand, but no, Ayla Paz, representing Local Clean Energy Alliance. I just wanted to say that we are very excited to do this work with Local Clean Energy Alliance. We're also, both from me and from the Local Clean Energy Alliance team, I just wanted to express a lot of gratitude to the CAC for the continued curiosity and desire to learn about resilience hubs, desire to learn from the people who are the experts. And I really hope that this is going to be an informative and fruitful time for the CAC to learn about resilience hubs, learn how to best advocate for resources and funding Yeah, so thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, with that, what is the will of the committee?
I'll make,
We're at the motion to move towards that board action item.
I move the CAC strongly support this proposal, the staff proposal.
Sorry. I was so eager to second you that I was speaking over your energy sentence. I have a second.
Pacheco seconds. And third,
The first and second again, please.
member Lutz, member Pacheco.
Thank you.
We'll do a roll call vote.
Thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Right, yes.
Member Balkasun,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
No.
Member Lockman,
Yes.
Member Pacheco,
Yes.
Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz,
Yes,
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
Thank you very much for that action. We'll go back to items T5. Is there any further discussion on the ad hoc committee formation? We can look at the conversation around resilient hubs or anything else we'd like to. Is there anything else there? Yes, sir.
I would like to, in addition to the local ad hoc committee to explore the local development business plan, I would like to propose an ad hoc committee to discuss rate setting and electricity prices. Separate from the local development business plan.
Okay.
I just want to ask if this would include, if the committee could look at a different rate plans that would cover the new electrification options. For instance, if there's just a rate plan right now, if you have solar, you've got to be pigeonholed in this rate plan. If you've got an EV over here, what if you have an EV solar and you've gone electric, or you just have electric heat and you still have gas, water heating?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you
Definitely
very
part
much.
of that.
Wonderful.
And also to look at the question of decoupling from PG&E's generation rates. AVA's rates have been going up indexed to PG&E's, but I don't think that's necessary anymore. And seems like there should be a broader discussion on that. When I looked at our own electrical bill, over half of it is from PG&E's transmission and distribution charges, which AVA has no control over at all. But I think the CCAs should gather together statewide and push the PUC and PG&E to rein that in and reduce those charges and reduce the rate at which those charges are growing.
Are you suggesting we might lobby the Capitol? Member Weiner, maybe we're talking about rate settings. I thought there might be an opportunity for you to go lobby the state.
Been there, done that.
Oh, but yes, Act Two. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was bridging it.
In all seriousness, there have been some articles, certainly in the LA Times, I think recently, on how PG&E has spent, if not billions, lots of millions of dollars on what they call fire risk reduction, but turns out to be a lot of work on distribution lines in our neighborhoods that are not actual fire risks. And that the actual fire risks are the large voltage transmission lines, because if something catches fire in your neighborhood, they get a call within 2 minutes and it's out. I mean, because the fire department comes. Whereas in the urban wildfire interface, where they're outside of town, people, it isn't reported right away and things catch fire and keep burning. So because they get an 8% return on everything they spend, they're happy to spend because they get a return on it. But what they're spending on is not necessarily what we need, and it is one of the things that's contributing to our rate increases. So I don't know if there's a role for CCAs in terms of talking about the utilities. I think CCAs are very delicate about that, but it may be that it's the time to do it.
Yeah, I was focusing more on the generation charges, but that's because that's what AVA's been doing, clearly. But I think you're pointing out another need, which is to push back on PG&E on their transmission and distribution charges.
It's really pushing back on the PUC. They get everything approved by the California Public Utilities Commission, which some people have said was created to regulate the monopoly, but instead has come to protect it. So, I mean, these are just comments that are in the ether, right? I'm not making this up.
Right.
But it seems to me that CCAs could have a role to play in going to the PUC and saying, we have to pay for maintenance of the grid, but the charges that are being made for that are not necessarily the ones that we think are the ones that should be approved. I also do think, as long as I'm talking for a moment, there's a role in trying to get the cost of generation down, because the cost of generation itself has been going up, in part because the permitting agencies are very slow, and because of the way FERC charges for interconnection, these companies are paying a lot of money up front to maintain themselves in the interconnection queue. So when they do generate energy, it'll go somewhere. And that's millions and millions of dollars. But as a result, the prices rise. And I forget who it was from staff a few sessions ago said that the rates for solar energy, which is our main source of renewable energy, have been rising. And we need to look at why that is. It's not because the profits are rising.
I would, Peter, I'd like to, that would be, in my opinion, a very good ad hoc committee for us to figure out like what can we do to write letters or whatever, not lobby, but what can we recommend to the AVA lobbying people to do to kind of address that. And that, so I mean, I'd be willing to be part of that. I'm very interested in that because, I mean, you mentioned, you know, how can we help people? What is the outcome? What are we really doing? And I think that'd be something really tangible. And kind of an aside to that is with the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's NOx and SOx stuff that's coming out, like what are we doing to prepare people for that? Because, I mean, that's going to hit every homeowner if you can't have a, you know, a furnace that's producing NOx and SOx and that you can't replace it with a cheaper one. You have to buy the expensive one. I mean, that seems like something we should be thinking about too in our discussions of rates.
Yeah.
So I think that would be like kind of a bigger picture, but something that we should, because I mean, AVA's got these other things handled. We just don't understand them necessarily. But there are things that we could push for, maybe talking about, maybe we should meet with the other CACs, or I'm not sure what that would look like, but.
Sounds like maybe I was too narrow in the description of my ad hoc committee.
No, but I think
So-
it's a great what you
I
said.
think it's great.
Yeah.
So, but maybe broaden it to include looking at what AVA Community Energy and potentially other CCAs can do
Yeah,
to bring down generation, not generation costs and production costs, and limit unnecessary T&D costs that, you know, aren't on our bill, aren't on AVA's.
because that's helping out, that would be helping AVA as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we're supposed to do.
I was wondering, Peter, fantastic information. I was wondering, does PG&E actually produce some sort of a report saying, okay, this is where our maintenance costs are, and this is where our reduction of fire hazard costs are, or they just lump it all together and they're actually using those funds to do their maintenance on their lines? Is that what's happening? Or do you know?
I don't know. These are all filings with the PUC. The PUC reviews them. But I think there's some feeling that it's not reviewed as well as it could.
It's not as transparent as it should be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know what I should call that ad hoc committee, but it's an ad hoc committee related to the price of electricity and what can Ava Community Energy and other CCAs do to help reduce those total energy prices.
So the What Could Ava Do committee?
Well,
Yes, sir.
and I don't mean to be shy and retiring about this, but I'm worried that the board of directors will look askance at us as an advisory committee if we're too frisky. So I'm just wondering whether we have the ability as an advisory committee to go in this direction, to take a look at some of these other issues that are driving costs and are problematic for consumers. And if we do, I think it's great. And I just wonder whether the board would welcome that or would say, yeah, you go right ahead, but we're not going to do anything about it. So, because if they don't, then it's kind of useless for us to, maybe not. Go ahead.
If we find credible reasons to think that there's reasons things should be done differently, and our board doesn't want to do those, we can probably publish them and, pass them out to people who could do things.
Well, you're building on the frisky side.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that to not be so frisky, but that would make us better advisors if we understand what's going on with the prices better. So it'd be kind of educating ourselves, like what you were talking about, the resilience hub, the same thing.
Well, I mean, we advised on a number of issues, and the board doesn't have to take our advisement. We're just the community. We're the ones that are just kind of focused on what the community is hopeful for and what the community, would help the community. We're one of the eyes of the board. So, I mean, it's not like we're going to expect them to, we can be frisky and still probably just get a no once in a while, but at least we brought
If you
it
don't
to
ask,
light.
at least ask. Right.
I'm just trying to go back to the three items we talked about, the three buckets. So energy efficiency, was that one of the categories?
Yeah.
So it just fall into that area, wouldn't it? Or is it, it could be anything?
It's just distribution too, right?
Well, I came at it from the bill, the total bill that, we're paying. And a good chunk of it goes to AVA.
Yeah.
And that's for the generation, but over half of it goes to PG&E. And the rates have been going up fast on both sides. And originally, I was thinking AVA's, our rates are indexed to what PG&E charges to people who haven't left. And that, I don't know that that's still necessary. And I haven't seen I haven't seen the summaries from staff of here's how many megawatt hours we sold, and here's how much money it cost us to get those megawatt hours. And, you know, how much leeway do we have to reduce the rates? And then Peter and Indira pointed out there's other factors that we should look into that are driving up prices as well.
So I hear there's three voices interested in the space around electricity, generation demand. Do we want to start with that? And then is there a couple more hands interested in the space for this ad hoc committee? And then we need a different chair. Right? We can't have you chair both, right? I believe. Member Weiner, Peter, would you want to chair this ad hoc committee?
I never want to chair anything,
I don't-
but Indira can do.
No,
Okay.
I will help you.
All right, Indira will chair. I'll help.
I need a chair.
Okay, I'll chair if you help.
I will.
And then
I'm
since
very-
you're the chair, what would you like to call the committee? What would Ava do?
How about rates?
Rates?
Rates.
Okay, rates committee.
One question I have for staff, if we have an ad hoc committee on rates, it would really be useful, I think, if someone on staff who knows how rates are calculated and what the variables are could help us a bit. Is that a possibility?
Sure, what I would actually refer to would be the budgeting process. So I would refer those members of the ad hoc to the May and June 2024 board meetings where rate setting is discussed. I don't want to say ad nauseum, but I'll say ad length.
So those, we can find those online though, right?
Yeah.
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 Do you have any more volunteers, one or two more from the members, or maybe alternates that maybe we can tap into? Or maybe you want to reach out to Rachel or somebody else?
Yes, I wanted to ask, is there anything legislatively that prevents AVA from taking over the, incorporating the transmission lines into our mission besides purchasing energy?
So there is a process of municipalization where a public entity takes over the lines and wires. That process historically has been extremely slow and expensive. And I don't think it's been successful in the last 100 years.
Is that what the city of Alameda does? I mean, is that?
Yeah, so there are some municipal utilities like Alameda Municipal Power, Palo Alto, SMUD, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, lots of irrigation districts, but they were all formed a very, very long time ago. And so it's not that it's impossible to take over the lines and wires. It's just that it would have to be probably done through eminent domain, and it's a lot of litigation, and it's not something that really CCAs are specifically set up to do.
Okay, thank you.
Member Harper, then I'll come back to you. Is that okay? Member Harper.
I just wanted to chime in that I'm generally interested in learning more about energy affordability issues and the rate setting process. I guess I'd love to understand a little bit better about like some of the key areas or like buckets that y'all would be wanting to get into, but it's a consistent issue. We're in my neck of the woods, people are unanimously like, if people agree on one thing, it's that their energy bills are too high. So if even it's just an opportunity to learn a little bit more about the rate setting and do some research with experts on potential recommendations we can make, I'd love to participate.
You're on the list.
Okay, thanks.
You're drafted.
You've been drafted.
All right. So we have 4 members, and maybe I'd recommend an alternate to maybe engage. So they have an opportunity to engage one of the alternates possibly.
I have 5 minutes.
You have 5?
5.
Harper, Lutz, Buxton, Weiner, Jim, Lutz, yeah.
Harper, Love, I don't know Rachel's last name.
Oh, but you need to ask her first.
Okay, myself and Peter.
Yes. Anybody else, you maybe want to just check in. All right, are we on consensus it's okay to form this ad hoc committee? Do you need to repeat?
I do think that we've gone through a lot of information, so if we can boil it down and maybe have a motion, that would be helpful.
A motion?
Just to make sure that it's correct.
I would move that we establish an ad hoc committee on, I would take from Member Harper's statement on energy affordability.
Okay.
That's more elegant, energy affordability.
No,
And who are the members and chair?
chair would be,
Co-chairs with Peter. I'll chair. Okay.
I'll be on the committee.
Yeah.
Member Lutz
Yeah. I'm on.
and Member Harper, with the potential for alternate to join the committee?
Well, there are only 4 of us on it.
And then maybe if you got an alternate, maybe there'll be 5. But you get
We'll
more.
ask Rachel. An alternate.
No, and you wanted to be on.
You want to be on this committee?
Well, I wanted to be on.
Yeah, why does it have to be on?
I was thinking
5 isn't
Rachel
a quorum. Why can't it be 5?
You can be whatever you want.
Sure, let's do 5.
Who's the 5th?
Yeah, okay, and I want to do something with his too.
Do we make a, sorry, do we need to make a motion
We're,
about
we're,
that?
we're a motion in the first on this one. So we have 4 people and maybe another 5th
Maybe Susan
and maybe,
and maybe Rachel.
so we have at least 4 members in the chair. That's all we need right now. If more, it's up to everybody. So I need a second.
I'll second.
Second there. Any other discussion?
I think we have 5 members.
I don't think we need to vote on these. We
I
just
think-
need a clear
I just
definition.
need to
Okay,
have
so-
it very clear.
Weiner,
Right.
Lutz, Harper, Balkison, Souza.
Right.
Okay, so we did have a
And
motion,
on
but do we need?
Energy affordability.
Energy affordability.
Energy affordability, as long as it's clear. I don't know if the vote is so necessary, but it's the fact that I just need to be able to report it accurately in minutes.
about like, is it involving rates, or are you talking about overall energy affordability?
Well, I think our first meeting would have to be focusing on what aspect of the affordability that we would want to do.
Mhm.
And it could be rates, it could be, and I'm hoping Peter would help guide that because of his background.
Yes. So from what I heard from the clerk, you wanted a motion, but you're saying
Then we
we don't need,
Energy efficiency?
you don't need a motion.
well, then
For
I
the
would
chair to
do-
decide. If, I
Why
mean, I
wouldn't
just
it be?
want to make sure that it's very clear in minutes. I think a motion would be
Okay.
easier to.
So yeah, we'll do that. So we'll move this one first. There's a first and second, clarifying, we'll do a vote that we're okay forming this ad hoc committee for energy affordability with the members described, announced with room for another up to 6 members.
Okay.
All right, so does that make sense with you, Peter? Up to 6 members, right?
I'm joining.
And then vice chair's joining.
Should we just do all 3 in the same?
Yeah, let's do all 3.
Let's knock out this one first, and then we'll come back to the first one we discussed. And if we want to do the third one, then we'll try to wrap up by 8. If not, we'll take a break. Okay, so we'll go with this motion, with this first energy
And this-
affordability.
Weiner is the primary, who's the secretary?
Oh,
Susan?
I
Oh,
second,
it's-
I
yeah,
second it,
yeah,
yes, I'm
Right,
sorry.
thank you,
Thank you.
Okay.
Go for it.
thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
member Weiner,
Yes.
member Balkison,
Yes,
member Stevenson,
Yes.
member Lachman. Member Lachman?
He left.
Member Pacheco. Member Harper,
Yes.
member Lutz,
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza,
Yes.
Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion is approved.
And I'd like to get back to the local development business plan ad hoc committee we discussed about before we jumped into other committees, because I think we had some interest there. Was that the one? I think I had member Landry, member Bakusun, was it? Were you in that one too?
it was, but I probably should.
And member Pacheco, no Pacheco?
Yes, I'm sorry. LDVP, yes.
Yeah, so we had, let's just repeat that again for me. Member Landry, member Lutz, member Pacheco. I want to
I'm
make
gonna
sure.
just do the affordability.
Okay, it's great. So we have 3 there. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, clarification question after you're done. Addition. Clarification, so I brought up that I feel that offshore wind would be part of this, but is that something that you think would be part of this?
You can't see.
Yes,
Huh?
it can be.
Well, okay.
It could be, but I don't.
That could be.
I'm thinking that the way I'm thinking is the committee would like look at what staff prepared for the board to review at their meeting on Wednesday and see if there's different take on review of what has happened in the past to see what was attempted, what failed, what succeeded, what was not attempted, what circumstances have changed so it doesn't make any sense to do it anymore, things like that. And then possibly consider recommending that the board put out an RFP to do another full-scale 5-year LDVP plan, because I don't think.
Wasn't that developed in-house last time?
No, there wasn't a house to develop it in because it preceded EBCE. And so I think the county paid and maybe a couple cities paid for consultants to develop a plan with lots of community input. And I would think, I mean, it might be appropriate for staff to do it, but that's the sort of discussion I want the ad hoc to have. And not to, I don't want the ad hoc to say, here's what should be in the next one. I want the ad hoc to set up the process to develop the next one. And what the steps to go through, the recommended steps, what parts of that's the discussion I want. I don't want to ad hoc to go off 3 or 4 of us and say, oh, here's what Avis should be doing for the next 5 years. I don't have.
So yes, I support that idea. I agree that we need to reinvigorate or set new goals that we can then hold ourselves to for LDVP.
Right, yeah.
So yes, I want to be in that committee. It's sounding from the way that you're envisioning it, that offshore wind policy recommendations might not be part of that. So I'll think about whether or not I propose an ad hoc committee on that. That's something there's going to be a lot of activity coming in this year, and it's going to need input from players like Ava. Okay, thank you.
But yeah, if
And to restate what I said 2 or 3 meetings ago, the reason that I was considering offshore wind to be a part of the LDVP going forward is because what we're looking at is economic development and actual jobs created in our service territory to create the actual materials and service materials that are part of the actual resource being developed.
That sounds like you can do that with what you're proposing. It sounds like you can make sure that's in there.
but you might want to operate in a faster pace.
Well, I'll bring
We
this
can
back,
talk about it.
but yes, I support the LDVP and I want to be on the LDVP.
Okay.
ad hoc.
All right, and you can also ask staff to agendize offshore wind discussion towards the end of the meeting, if you'd like to. Put that on the list of items to bring back separately. You can be part of this committee and also ask staff to bring forth an item discussing offshore wind.
Are we having a January meeting?
Yes.
Okay, yes, okay, I will take your suggestion, but asking for February, for it to be discussed in February.
It depends on staff capacity, but yes. So let's go back to this item of the ad hoc committee. The local development business plan as of right now. Member Landry, Member Lutz, Member Pacheco, Member Lakshman. I think you were in this committee. That's 4, up to 6, maybe alternate. And Member Lutz, will you chair it?
Yes.
Okay. Could I take a motion for that committee?
So moved.
And can we have a second?
Second, VJ.
Any clarification? All right, we'll take a roll call vote on this committee to formalize the ad hoc committee on the local development business plan with those players. Do you want me to repeat them?
Please.
Member Landry?
Yes.
No, 1 second, sorry, I'm not doing roll call. Repeating the members of the committee. Member Lutz,
I'll chair it.
Yes, Chair,
Yeah.
Member Pacheco, Member Lakshman, yes. And I would recommend up to 6 with an alternate where you can identify one. Not the same person.
Great, thank you. Member Landry,
Yes.
Member Weiner,
Yes.
Member Balkison,
Yes.
Member Stevenson,
Yes.
Member Lakshman. Yes. Member Pacheco, Member Harper,
Yes.
Member Lutz.
Yes.
Vice Chair Souza will wait for Vice Chair Souza to return. And Chair Hernandez?
Yes.
Pending Vice Chair, the motion is approved.
Do we need her for the approval?
No.
So we can approve out of the room. Okay, and then coming back to Resilient Hub Subcommittee, do we want to table that conversation until after, or is there, do we want to form another committee? To ask the question, are we good with the Resilient Hub one?
My apologies. Can we repeat again who were the first and second for the local development plan?
Cynthia, you
I
were
was first, yes.
Right.
second. Who was my second?
I think it was Mr. Weiner was second.
Oh, yes, you were second.
Yeah.
You second the motion.
I did.
Thank you.
Great, great.
All right. Do we do another subcommittee? Are we subcommittee out?
Would it make sense for the interest parties to attend the workshop and, if appropriate, bring back a proposal at a later meeting to form an ad hoc
Okay.
on resilience hubs?
Okay, sounds good. So those interested in Resilient Hubs Ad Hoc Committee first should attend the workshops, and then they can bring back the interest to form the Ad Hoc Committee with additional information. Is what I'm hearing. Is that fine?
Yeah.
Member Buxton?
That makes sense to me too.
And was
Sounds
that
good.
Member Harper? Does that make
I was already
sense?
saying that makes sense to me too. Sounds good.
Perfect.
This is going back to,
We need you in the mic a little louder.
I'm going back to the resilience hubs.
Uh-huh.
Did, when we voted to approve, did we say that, to add the need to cover other areas or to look into that for the next one? Or did we add that in the actual motion, or was that separate?
No, I don't think we added that, but I think they're working to cover the. entire
Okay, so
territory.
that'll be documented somewhere.
I can bring it up as a comment as
Okay, good,
well.
because I think that's a pretty important one.
So we have the element of not only the territory, but also the exclusivity.
Yeah. And then also the
The
neutrality.
neutrality, not
The
neutrality is the
neutrality
word, not
agreement, yeah.
exclusivity, neutrality.
And union labor, those were both in there, just clarification.
Those are separate.
But they were, okay, good, just to make sure.
And I'm also for the neutrality also being a
Yeah,
on our
neutrality
union's
agreement.
executive board.
Correct. And then we voted for the second half, maybe, so we're good.
Yes, good, who's on it?
Member Landry, Member Lutz, Member Pacheco, Member Lakshman, and up to 6 people with the alternates.
Yeah,
Oh,
sure.
well,
Yes. You're on.
so I think we have a adjustment to the, we'll pull back the motion we just voted on, the second one, I think. Well, you want to be on it. Okay, we have up to 6, so she's going to join, but informally, we'll formalize that in the future. Are we done with this item?
And
Yes.
Just a clarification, with
Yes.
the resilience hub that's going to come back to.
It may come back based on based on the learnings. So it'll be up to the committee to agendize that or the chair at that point.
Well, after we attend that workshop, we'll probably revisit, right?
So it'll be the will of the body. With that, we look at item C7, CAC member and staff announcements. Leading request to place items on future CAC agendas. Member Pacheco.
Yes, I'd like to see discussion of offshore wind policy for 2025. Potentially, maybe in the February meeting. If that would.
Okay. That'll be up to Adrian to work through. Yeah, all right. And then also in January, we'll be looking to have elections for chair and vice chair. So normally annually, so we look to see if there's any changes there. At some point, I was thinking about stepping down, but I think I'll stay on longer. So on the committee, so whatever the whatever the will of the body. So, okay. Staff, Alex, any other comments?
Thank you, Chair Hernandez, and very glad to know that you're sticking around. The only staff announcement was just a reminder, maybe redundant at this point, that there's going to be an item on the upcoming board meeting Wednesday evening, a review of the local development business plan, which will also provide a summary of local development efforts upcoming in 2024 and 2025.
And we'll expect the ad hoc committee to listen attentively.
Right.
All right, with any other items?
I
Anything
had
else?
I had a
Yes, please.
question. There was a discussion about an annual report that Ava does an annual report. Was that ever mentioned in any of the board meetings, or is there any updates on that?
I think we discussed about having an annual report for Ava Community Energy at one of the previous meetings. I'll look to Alex, did we ever discuss about that in the future, marketing wise? Do an annual report for Ava, sort of value? I think that's maybe something for marketing to consider.
I don't recall specifically an annual report on the value in terms of like rate savings and things of that kind.
I think an annual report is what we discussed. I think, was it at the meet and greet?
Yeah.
And talking more about like, could Ava present an annual report so it really shows the value of Ava Community Energy in the community, like the 36,000 union jobs, the so many gigawatts of power and cost savings. And I think that's something of interest.
Number of customers on Renewable 100. You know, just
A picture of the organization.
yeah. I mean, most corporations do an annual report.
Better.
So what, like a report with summary statistics?
Yeah, yeah.
Testimonials in the community.
To help board members, CAC members, and interested community members get a snapshot view of what Ava Community Energy is and what it's doing, where it's going.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Key
think,
events in the past year.
yeah, that sounds like the type of thing that would probably be developed for the annual board retreat, which is, another public meeting. So
Yes, yes,
That's
perfect.
Just to clarify, so the annual board retreat would do a year review, or would it be more of an annual report?
well, we could certainly provide a summary of up-to-date statistics on enrollment figures, service area wide savings, that kind of thing, and a breakdown on basic general customer demographics, like, number of residential versus non-residential accounts served and things like that.
So I think I'm going to ask Adrian to maybe help us agendize the discussion about creating an annual report.
Alex, doesn't PG&E do one
For their investors.
for their investors?
Presumably.
So something like that,
Okay.
the pie charts.
Yes, we can agendize maybe a discussion around the annual report. Right. That'd be great. So we can prepare that, be customer focused and also stakeholder value. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that reminder. No, it's great. It was good. All right. With that, anything else, Member Weiner?
One request. Alex referred to, I think, the April and May board meetings discussing rates. Is it possible to send us a link to those?
Certainly.
Maybe it's going to do that. And I have one final question. I know I live in Berkeley, where I think the default is the 100% renewable, which is 5% more than PG&E rates.
Same in Piedmont.
Overall, what percentage of Ava customers pay less than you would pay to PG&E, and what percentage of us, like me, pay more?
Well, the annual report would tell you probably.
Oh, I don't know if it would.
No? Okay.
I'm not sure it's something that's.
Could start riots.
The annual report should say that.
Yes, it should, but I don't know if it does, but Alex probably knows the answers on this guy.
Oh, I wish I did. I mean, I know we have 7 communities that have defaulted to the 100% renewable product, such as Berkeley and Piedmont and San Leandro. and Hayward. But we'd have to kind of calculate the number of accounts that are within each of those jurisdictions. I mean, you could also break that down by number of accounts or by percentage of load. So there are different ways of slicing and dicing that data.
I'd be interested in both. I just have this nagging feeling that Ava customers actually may pay more than they pay to PG&E rather than less, and get something out of it. I'm not complaining, obviously, but since one of the things we value is that we're less than PG&E, and we have 7 communities whose default is more than PG&E, I'm just wondering where the balance is and what our bragging rights are.
Just on that note, I do believe a majority of our customers are on Bright Choice, because like our biggest cities, Oakland, Fremont, those big ones with a lot of load and customers, those are Bright Choice defaulters. So a majority of our customers are on Bright Choice, but still a sizable portion are on R100. And then as Stockton joins as well, they'll be on Bright Choice. So most customers are saving that 5% on Bright Choice, but still many don't. Bright Choice is
Renewable
the-
100.
Yeah, Renewable 100 is 100% renewable with that $0.25 per kilowatt hour extra charge. Bright Choice 5% below PG&E. Yeah.
All right, with nothing else, I appreciate everybody's time this evening. Our next community advisory meeting will be held on Monday, Jan 13th, 2025. Or is it
There's a typo. It was 2024.
Will it be here, Adrian?
Yeah,
It'll be
just
at
making
this
sure.
location or another?
Same location. With that, everybody have a happy holiday and Feliz Navidad.
Thanks, bye all. Happy holidays.
Everybody.
Frisky. I like